we'll get started. So, welcome everybody for coming. It's a great turnout. Find yourself a seat. So, just a quick intro. I'm Brad Kanouse. I'm the Director of Investment Services with Breeze Real Estate. And then there's Matt Cochran back there. He's founder of Fountain Mortgage, which is the building that we're at. So thank you, Matt, for letting us chill out here. So a little bit about Alex. I'm really excited about Alex being here, and thank you very much for coming.
Sure.
So he's known as the 1031 replacement finder, and he's the owner of Legendary Apartment Brokers.
That's right.
He specializes in connecting buyers, sellers, brokers, and agents with exclusive off-market multifamily opportunities in Kansas City. So he is with over $100 million in multifamily real estate sales. He's been recognized as a heavy hitter in the commercial real estate by the Kansas City Business Journal. He's co-founder and co-host of the KC Multifamily Meetup Group, which is every third.
Last Wednesday of the month.
Last Wednesday of the month. That's right. At Strang's Hall. Sorry. And he's the host of the Kansas City Multifamily Minute, which is a weekly YouTube and podcast show where he shares practical insights on multifamily investing. He's guided investors from more than 25 states through successful 1031 exchanges, and he brings a wealth of expertise in navigating inspections, financing, equity, and appraisals. He combines firsthand experience with analytical approach to help clients identify and maximize the current and future value of their investments. So everybody welcome Alex to Investor League.
Thank you.
So, we'll just get, here's his information. So take a picture. So a little bit, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started into real estate, and sort of, I always like to ask people their why.
Yeah. Well, it's, everybody's, I think, probably in real estate here, so I'll try not to be too repetitive from what your guys' experiences were. But my interest in real estate was I wanted, to build wealth for my family. But the hardest piece was, as I didn't come from family money. I didn't have any real money growing up. So it was like, how can I make a difference in my life and my children's lives? And so it was like, the path was real estate. There's so many different opportunities there, as we all know. And what happened was I sort of, I don't want to say lucked into it, but we built our dream house. We had a whole bunch of equity after that purchase that I was actually forced to get a home equity line of credit to complete the construction of the house. And it was a pretty decent sized line of credit. It was just sitting in my account, and I was like, okay, what do I do with this money? I could, give it back to the bank, but I was like, no, I've always wanted to do real estate. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad back in, 1998 or whenever it was that it came out. And then went out and I just bought a fiveplex. There was one in Midtown. My rule was it had to be within 2 blocks of an economically viable location. That happened to be the streetcar line. Well, here we are 5 years later. The streetcar line's finally launching, but I thought it was going to be, a year or two later. So that's how I got started. Was I just went out. I wanted to go headfirst into a commercial loan, and there I was.
Okay, nice. So we'll just dive straight into it because you deal with 1031 exchanges. That's mainly your main track. So start off with telling us the big general overview of what is a 1031 exchange, and then we can just sort of dive deeper into that.
Yeah, so 1031 exchange is a way to defer your taxes, your tax liability, meaning your capital gains, on a real estate investment property. It has to be an investment property, can't be a flip, and allows you to buy another property, a replacement property, deferring all your tax implications on that. Pretty basic. There's a whole bunch of different rules around that, and the big key is the timelines and how you manage the timelines is very important.
So you dive a little bit. So what are the requirements that an investor will have to follow? So talk about the timelines. Let's go through a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So the details on that are you have if you sell a property, you have 45 days to identify up to 3 properties. And there's some nuances in the 3 properties. The main piece is the property is a little bit of a misnomer. It actually can be a portfolio. So let's say you sell a property and you want to identify 12 duplexes that an investor owns. Some other investor owns 12 duplexes. You want to identify that. Well, that's not 12 properties you're identifying. That's actually one property. So you can identify that plus, 2 others, and it can be farmland, it can be hotel, it can be, commercial building like this. It can be anything that is a real estate investment. It cannot be a flip, and it cannot be your primary residence. It has to be an actual investment property. You cannot 1031 exchange into, equipment or tractors or an airplane. You used to be able to do that, actually, but you can't anymore.
Okay.
It's been 30 years since you've been able to.
Okay.
But so you have 45 days to identify up to 3 properties. From the date of closing, you have 6 months to close on 1, 2, or 3 of those properties. So you basically have called 180 days to get the whole thing done. And those numbers, those days are hard and fast, rules like it doesn't matter if you're in the hospital, your mom just died, or, you felt sick that day. The IRS doesn't care if it's on Christmas Day, your 45th day or your 6th month. It has to close on or before that day. So you got to be very careful about that. You can't forget. I've had clients, well, not my clients, but at least before they came to me, where they would wait till the 45th day to identify, and actually was in the hospital and wasn't able to identify his replacement property. And so he comes to me on the 46th day and says, "Hey, I missed out on identifying, for the 45th day." I'm like, "Well, there's nothing you can do. You can't just go to an IRS advisor and say, 'Hey, please extend this day.' It doesn't work like that."
Okay. Go ahead, Matt. No, it's fine. I think if there's questions
Yeah,
throughout it,
jump in.
go ahead and ask. We'll just
clarify the identifying. Is that like you sold one investment property, now you have 45 days from the close date of the sale to sign a contract on purchasing a new property?
It's a great question. So the identification is simply just identifying an address. So you don't have to go under contract on it. So you sell a property, you have 45 days to identify an address, and you have to do that through what's called a qualified intermediary, to where they actually hold your funds. So when you sell a property and you're going to title to close, this qualified intermediary, it can be anybody, but it has to be arm's length, so it can't be your mom or something like that. But there's qualified people out there that actually hold funds in an account, and they hold those in an account for you. And because if you touch the money, that's an IRS transaction, so it has to go to a third party. So to answer your question, though, it's just an address. You don't have to go under contract on it. You don't have to have it inspected. You don't have to have anything. And you can swap out whatever you identify of your 3 properties at any point all the way up through your 45th day. So I was actually just had some investors in town this week where they're here looking for the replacement property, and they said, "Well, I want to identify these 3, but what if I change my mind?" Well, you can totally do that all the way up through your identification period. So you can identify a property today and then change your mind tomorrow and, add a new one all the way up. Now, some qualified intermediaries, which I have a list of, well, I really only use one, but there's a great qualified intermediary that allows you to basically text him the, midnight on your 45th day if you really wanted to make sure you get the right property in place. Because what also happens too, especially in a hot market, is those properties go under contract. Mm-hmm. So like these guys I was meeting with yesterday, they're like, "Oh, I want to identify this one, but let's hold off." Well, okay, you can, but what if that one goes, or all 3 of them go under contract, because you're screwing around, waiting around for the world's greatest property to arrive.
Yeah.
Goes under contract, you're hosed. And so what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. When you talk with investors about doing a 1031 exchange, when in the process, like say I have a house that I'm looking to sell, when would you advise them to start talking and like from when they purchased the original property, like I want to 1031 exchange this one eventually, or you get what I'm saying?
Yep. When to start
talking with you, or talking to somebody about like, I want to do the 1031 exchange process, because you have to have it set up before you pretty
ideally
much
you can do it at any point.
Yeah.
So I had a guy, it's like, okay, when do I really make an announcement I'm going to do a 1031 exchange, or how late in the game can I decide to do that? I had a guy tell me, "I'm absolutely not doing a 1031 exchange. There's no way I'm going to do that." Because that's what I always ask as a broker and agent: are you going to 1031 exchange this into another property. It's like, no, I would never do that. The week before, he's like, I'm thinking about doing a 1031 exchange. How do I do this? Which is fine.
Yeah.
Because all you have to do is have a qualified intermediary. It kind of makes title upset with bringing somebody in last moment, because the title company actually comes in the qualified intermediary actually comes in and takes over your funds. And so there's a whole system in place there that title and your qualified intermediary have to do it. But I always advise somebody that, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing that. Okay, obviously start talking to me or somebody that's an expert in it when you're starting to think, am I going to sell this property or not? Because you want to start knowing really what's kind of out there. What am I going to 1031 into? Who should I speak to from a qualified intermediary standpoint? Before you list it is usually the best time to start talking to somebody. But you can do it at any point. And I've talked to even others where they're like, I don't know, what is it? They know what it is, but how do I do that? And so it's always good to just talk to somebody who knows a lot about it, so you can start getting some contacts. Because as you know, networking and stuff is everything. And,
sure. Yeah.
And you can start to formulate in your mind, okay, what am I going to 1031 into? Who should I talk to? Because when you do a 1031 exchange, you're thinking about the next step. You shouldn't be thinking about the interest rate. You shouldn't be thinking about, my current project. It's like, okay, where do I want to go next?
Yeah.
And so really thinking forward about your replacement property is critical.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. So as an investor choosing a 1031 exchange company, and I think this is a question from Matt that he asked, what are the certain differentiators to look out for? He was saying he assumes cost structure an obvious one, but anything else? I don't know if you wanted to elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, just like if somebody's going to say, hey, I don't know anyone in the 1031 space. How do I pick?
Yeah, the 1031 exchange qualified intermediaries, those are the people, they'll charge you a nominal fee. I say nominal to hold your funds. Like I said, that's the arm's length person. And usually, depending on the amount, it's like $900, $500, maybe up to $2,000 to complete your 1031 exchange, meaning that's the fee they're going to charge you. And I don't know. I believe you can have that fee taken off the top. So, I've seen on the settlement statement, right? It comes out of proceeds. So it's not like just cash out of your pocket. I always, your mortgage company is going to have people that they've worked with on 1031 exchange. Your broker or real estate agent is going to have somebody they've worked with 1031 exchange to advise you on who should be your qualified intermediary to actually hold the funds. To be honest, they're all kind of about the same, except for, like I said, with being able to text a qualified intermediary on midnight on your last day. The other thing, too, is there are some qualified intermediaries. By the way, we call them QIs. So if you see that pop up, that's what that means. That maybe don't stretch the dollar as much. So one example is they might not be thinking in terms of so for example, I work a lot with multifamily investors. They want to buy a heavy value add property as a replacement property. Well, you're going to have a lot of rehab funds in there. Like the project might cost you $1.5 million, but you might have $400,000 in rehab costs. A qualified intermediary might tell that investor, well, you can't have rehab funds be part of your investment for your 1031 exchange, which is not true. You can have, because getting into more of the rules of 1031 exchange, you also have to replace it at the same cost or more. So if you sell a property for $2 million, your replacement property has to be $2 million or more. And so that's also key to defer all your taxes. You can defer part of your taxes in that, but to defer 100% of your taxes, you sell for $2 million, you have to have a replacement property of at least $2 million. And that's where sometimes the qualified intermediaries get mixed up, because if you're going to buy a replacement property for $2 million that needs $500,000 in rehab funds, you're at your $2 million mark, because the loan is going to be based off of a $2 million loan from some of these commercial lenders. So all these kind of nuances is really where you have to, it's where I like to have the advisor involved and say, okay, hang on, no, let's talk to a different qualified intermediary. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't, in that scenario you described, you wouldn't be able to buy, let's say you have 1.5 million, 500,000 in rehab. They're not going to count the total.
They should.
Oh, they should. Okay.
They should, yeah. I mean, at least the qualified intermediaries that I recommend would count the total value
Investment.
of that, because your loan that you're getting in that scenario, you sold a property for $2 million, you're buying a different property for $1.5 million, but you need $500,000 in rehab funds. That's still a $2 million based off a $2 million loan, at least from a commercial local lender here. And so you're still at that future valuation of $2 million as a replacement. So it should, but some, especially the California qualified intermediaries, because they're not used to the, a local lender being able to really roll that into a rehab loan as well as we are here in the Midwest.
But also, what on that same scenario, if you sold your property for $2 million, but what if you owed $1.5 million on it, you only had $500,000 of actual profit? You still have to identify a $2 million property? Or
yes, to defer all your taxes. And that calculation as far as how much taxes are you deferring, that you're going to have to pay on, it's called boot. So that leftover amount, let's say 1.9 million is what you end up with in that scenario on your replacement property. That $100,000 in profit is where your CPA comes in and all that other stuff on depreciation. I mean, it just gets into a mess. So I always recommend at least doing the replacement. Not everybody has their different reasons. Okay, I'm okay with paying some taxes, and of course, the longer you have it, the more depreciation tax or depreciation expense you got to build back into it. So it gets, you got to have a good CPA, and actually your CPA doesn't need to be that good. It just has to have, good books on it.
Yeah. He has to know what's going on. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell us, I mean, there's a lot of pros with the 1031, the tax benefits and things like that. What other pros do you like to use with that? And then tell us what sort of cons that you've seen throughout the process and through 1031 exchanges.
Yeah. So, I mean, we know a lot of the pros, right? But the other pro piece to it that I think some people miss is, I've got, probably a lot of you have too. You talk to some investors that have owned a property for a really long time. They've owned it for over 27 years, 30 years. Your depreciation expense is all gone. So that means you're paying 100% of the tax, 100% of the revenue. You're paying taxes on that because your depreciation expense is gone. And so if you were to 1031 exchange that property, that depreciation would start all over on a whatever new building you bought or old building you bought. So that's a huge advantage to some of the older investors, or I shouldn't say older, but people who had it for a long period of time. There's all sorts of things that some people don't think about. One is, okay, I hate this location of my duplex or my house or whatever it is. How do I get out of it? Well, you can 1031 exchange into something that costs you almost the exact same price, that's in a much better location. And even if it doesn't make you as much money, your headaches are lower. So it's not always about just cash flow and growing. It's about, just making your life better. As an overall picture, it's just, how do I make my life better through a 1031 exchange? There's a lot of different ways. Okay. So that's the pros.
Yeah. The
cons are sometimes you could get held up by okay, I'm going to 1031 exchange my fourplex in Overland Park and buy a 16 unit in Raytown. Might not be a great idea if, you live in Salina, Kansas or something. So you have to think about location. It's not always about unit count and, how much cash flow I'm getting off of this. It's, there's also stress and headaches and, what if I don't close on time? What if the buyer backs out? All these different things impact your 1031 exchange. Typically, if you're a real estate investor, you're used to taking some risk.
Yeah.
With an exchange, it's a little bit more risk.
Yeah. The timelines can really,
you
got to be on top of things. So, okay. Typically, we talked about this, we like to go through a deal, but you broker more of the 1031 exchanges. So can you tell us maybe about a deal that you've done that would be an interesting deal, with maybe some interesting quirks or something like that comes to mind.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
sort of go through some details of that.
Yeah, I've got probably like 4 dozen of those.
I would imagine, but
I just had this closing this last month where it was the sellers had 6 different properties, we'll call it. And the problem that they had was they wanted to sell it all at the same time. It was 6 properties that weren't the greatest. They were all in independence. They wanted to sell it as a package. So at the beginning of the year, I was okay, let's try it. We're going to do a price reduction. We're going to do all these different things. The market is not in the mood for buying packages right now. So after 30 days, I don't know the exact time, but after 30 days, we decided, okay, it's going to be very painful. We're going to split all 6 of these up into individual listings, and I'm fine. I'll just keep my commission the same. I'm going to make it as easy as possible. However, we're going to start with only 1 listing. So we're going to start with this duplex, had a vacant unit. If this thing sells for a decent price, we know that these other 5 could have a shot. And so lo and behold, it was priced right, and we got an offer on it that was a good enough offer. But we negotiated at that very moment basically like a 75, 90-day close.
Yeah.
Because we knew we had to get these other 5 back on the market individually, and they had to be priced lower and all these other things. So we dropped the price. We got basically all 5 of the other ones on market. Fingers crossed that these things were priced correctly. Yeah. We actually got all 6 of them under contract. One of them fell out of contract, but the other 5 all closed somehow within a week of each other. They're all supposed to close on the 21st, but we were dealing with 5 different buyers and 5 different lenders and 5 different appraisals. There was an appraisal issue, which always comes up where, I'm not big on appraisers, but they came in there and said, oh, well, this isn't, this is a non-conforming unit or whatever. The ceiling height isn't correct, so the seller has to drop the price. I'm like, no, you don't understand. The seller's not going to drop the price. So they had to find a new lender, and thankfully everybody hung together. And they all closed. So then this is ongoing. They have like $400,000 in equity they built up through this to now find their replacement property. So we're in the process of identifying that right now. Those are the ones I hate them. If it went to close, I would have hated it. It would have been my least favorite, transaction of all time. But luckily it closed, or they all closed. So
you got them all close, real close together in time. So how long? How many more days do they have to identify the property?
It's like 35, I think.
Okay, so they're still
and their date. Sure, you can identify. Each one has their own 1031 exchange. So he's got an $800 fee on all 5 of these, for the qualified intermediary. But since they want to do one 1031 exchange, their date really starts at the date the first set closed. So they're working kind of backwards from that date, even though there was a week overlap. So in that scenario, they kind of lost a week in terms of their brain power, and really my brain power too.
Sure.
So you got to keep your eye on the prize at that point.
So originally it was 6 properties, and you only did the 5, so you're only dealing with the 6th one is either still on the market or the client's still keeping it, and you're just dealing the 1031 exchange with the 5 then.
Yeah, so, and they're going to, so in that scenario, so you've got 5 exchanges. They're going to identify the same 3 properties for all 5 exchanges. And so they're going to buy called a $1.5-2 million property for the replacement. They're probably not even going to go up in unit count, but they're going from class C- property to hopefully class B or A, all in one location and all this other stuff. So it'll be a better, buy for them.
A lot less headache.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yep.
Let's see. Sort of tell us what I know you said you have a couple investment properties that you own. Tell us a little bit about those, just a little bit about your investment.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a 5-plex. Like I said, the first property I bought was a 5-plex through a commercial loan. And then I bought a duplex through a regular 30-year fixed. And then I bought a whole bunch of others. I actually bought Airbnb houses. I bought 4 large Airbnb houses towards the beginning of my career. I didn't manage it myself. I was looking for a way out of corporate world. I had a corporate job for 15 years prior. So I was desperate to find something in real estate that would get me there. And I thought this would get me there. It didn't. And then also COVID hit. Anyway, I sold all my houses. And so I have a duplex, a fiveplex, and a fourplex. And various reasons of why I bought all those. But now that it's been 7-8 years, now I have my own investment thesis of what I want to buy that works for me, which is the side by side fourplexes, all with garage, all with everything separately metered, all in Class A or B location. That's my investment thesis, because my investment thesis, I want it to be as passive as possible. I found that garages, fourplexes with garages and all separately metered gives me the best bang for the buck on having to deal with tenants.
Yeah.
Because I self-manage still.
You self-manage, yeah. Okay. Do you have any specific sort of real estate goals for this year? And then we sort of talked about what your thesis looks like, but just sort of what I always ask, what your 10-year goal may look like, investment portfolio.
Yeah, so I mean, my goal this year really, so 99% of my time is just being a broker. And I'm a deal junkie. I just love helping people find deals, close out deals, whether it's a duplex or a house. I sell houses, investment property houses are on up to, $10 million worth of multifamily investment. I don't care the size as long as the person I'm working with is great and easy. So, I mean, it's just all about transaction number of volume. You talked about 20, 30 transactions a year and, somewhere around 20 to $30 million in transactions. And then on the investment side, I don't really have a goal other than what presents an opportunity for me. I like spending money, so it's kind of hard to have investment goals unless you're going to spend money on an investment, which I should do. But, I've got a partnership too. I got my wife, so we got to kind of decide together. And then 10 years, I mean, I'd love to say that in 10 years, I mean, my 10-year goal is to have 28 units, all fourplexes, all in Class A or B location, and all paid off. I mean, that's not going to happen, but that's my goal. And then you have, $300,000 in passive income. I mean, I say passive only because of my thesis of the side by side. I'm going to have toilet leaks. I'm going to have water leaks. I'm going to have all these things. But the multifamily I've owned in the past, and I still own, the larger you get, the more tenant complaints and problems you have, which is fine for somebody who's not self-managing. But anyway, that's my investment goal.
It's a good goal. Where do you see sort of the Kansas City market going in the next 5 years? I originally asked 2 years, but we're going to expand it out a little bit for 5 years.
To answer that question, that's one of the reasons why I moved to Kansas City was because of the market that I saw. I knew nothing about real estate other than just, I saw a power and light district being developed. I saw, there was businesses popping up. I come from a small farming community in Nebraska, so this down here is like big city to me. And so I've obviously my whole life believed that Kansas City has been a great real estate market. So I think it's going in the right direction. When I talk to out-of-state investors, there's so much great stuff going on. The main reason is the economics of it. We're not a master of anything here. There's jobs across all different sectors. So if one job sector goes down, like whether it's manufacturing, we're fine because we've got tech. If tech goes down, we've got animal health. If animal health, we've got all these different pieces here that it makes it difficult for a massive, other than a pandemic or something, that's going to impact the economy negatively. Now we have a lot of cons too. Yeah. The big con in my mind is the fact we have two different, we're a very unique town. We have two different states that are constantly at battle with each other for jobs and other things, stadiums, whatever, that it makes it difficult to get some things done. It produces some good competition too, but anyway, that's I see the economy doing great. The Kansas City market being really great for both single-family home investment and multifamily investment development.
Thanks. Do you have any books or podcasts that you'd recommend, maybe specifically for 1031, to learn more about 1031 exchanges?
The 1031 exchange books I've read are super boring. Yeah, they're tough to. I mean, I could recommend them if you want to, fall asleep or mark it off. I read a book. So the qualified intermediate I recommend is Dave Foster. He's with ERG. He wrote a book that actually isn't that bad. I mean, it's decent. But the real advantage of the 1031 exchange is just about growing your real estate empire.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he used it, but of course, Sam Zell, billionaire real estate investor, I think he died last year. He's got a book that's amazing called "Am I Being Too Subtle or Am I Too Subtle?" That he's got an interesting investment journey. I mean, he really invented the REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust. So that's a great book to read for real estate investors.
Okay.
I like biographies, so it's pretty easy read too.
And your podcast.
Yeah, my podcast.
I've listened to your podcast. Yeah. So, and then before we open it, one more question before we open it up to sort of the audience. One piece of advice that you'd like to give to new investors or people that are just wanting to get started in investing.
Yeah, new investors, the best piece of advice is to just do it. Find something that no property is perfect. I've never seen a perfect property, even the brand new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they're hard to finance, but no property is perfect. Go in there, bite the bullet, buy something. Don't buy something stupid, but buy in a class A or B market. I've never had anybody come to me and say, "Alex, I really wish I would not have bought in Overland Park. That was just dumb." Nobody's ever said that to me. So just buy something, even if you think you're over. People told me when I bought my lake house lot. I mean, it had a house on it, a cabin. My family and my wife's family and other people told me I was stupid for buying this crappy cabin because they thought it was in the same price because I was going to tear it down.
Yeah.
And now, the lots next door were twice as amount. So, and my point of that is buying in a class A or B submarket is key to limiting your mistakes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks. And any questions from people about anything? 1031. Go for it.
What farm community did you grow up in?
Nebraska.
Yeah.
My dad's farm community between Lincoln and Omaha area.
We want to know specific.
Yeah, you can look. Yeah, you can look it up. It's called Wahoo, Nebraska.
Wahoo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Omaha.
You're from Omaha?
Gotcha.
Okay.
I go up
Yeah. It's a small town. It's fine.
Nice.
In your example that you gave, how they had to break up into separate properties, they did the 1031 exchange, then was it the collection of the value that they would have to go purchase, or was it like the whole house? Like all 5 properties?
You're talking about the replacement criteria?
Well, so how you said you had to, like, if you sold a $2 million property, you had to go and buy $2 million
Yes.
more, like the value of all 5 of those together, was that what they had to go and buy, or since they were like listed separately, was it 5 smaller?
Yeah, they could go with this example I'm working with right now. They could go to where they are all smaller, because some of them sold like duplexes, $110,000 duplex. So in that scenario, they'd only have to find another $110,000 property to replace into. But they had like on some of those, the duplex and the houses, they had like $80,000 in equity on some of those smaller ones. So they had plenty of room to go into. So I don't want to say legally, but from a tax standpoint or the 1031 standpoint, they have to just buy $110,000 worth of property for that specific 1031, but they don't want to do that because, like I said, they want to just have one property. They actually prefer it over just one roof because they're really trying to limit their property management fees and some of those kind of things.
And sorry if I missed this. Is it just the equity that they're getting out of the property, or the sales price of the
sale
property?
price?
The sales price.
You have to. You also have to replace the debt too. So usually the debt in Kansas City will take care of itself because of what you're exchanging up and into. So you have to, let's say you have $500,000 in debt when you sell something. You sell for $1 million. You got to find something that's $1 million at least, and you have to carry $500,000 in debt into that project as well. Which, like I said, in Kansas City, it takes care of itself. Sometimes you get into a situation in other markets where maybe you can't replace that same amount of debt because of where you're limited on. You have to add a lot more cash to it. Like, you sold something for $1 million. You only have $200,000 in debt on it, or sorry, the equity is off. So let's say you sold a $1 million property, you still owed $800,000. When you got $200,000, you can barely get a replacement property with 20% down. So you got to add more cash to it to buy a replacement property. That happens sometimes, but I mean, it's just so rare because you're going to be in that situation upside down on the property, or at least where you're not really having too much capital gains on it anyway, unless you did 100% financing to start.
Yeah.
So usually I've never had an issue where someone's been unable to find a replacement property because of their debt or even their replacement price.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like that would be the ideal way to go
Yeah.
on the 1031 exchange.
Yeah. I've had people too, where they thought they were doing a 1031 exchange. Like this gal, she sold a property in Midtown. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have this huge 1031 exchange hit. I'm like, what'd you buy for? I bought it for 1.8. Okay, well, we're selling it for 1.85. I mean, what are we really talking about here? Oh yeah, you're right. So anyway, after fees and everything, she made no profit on it, so she had no 1031 exchange need at that point.
Okay. Yeah. What other questions we got?
Are there a lot of scenarios where people aren't able to identify a property in a lot of amount of time? That's pretty common.
It's common for, it can be common because, as kind of we were talking about, people get really picky about what they're trying to find. I had a client, I'm sad to say, you can't force people to do stuff, but she could not find a replacement property. Nothing, it's like Goldilocks, right? It was too big, it was too small, it was too this, too that. And I'm like, your option you get down to the 45-day window is you either pay your taxes on this thing, or you buy something that's nice that you're overpaying for, but you save $65,000 in taxes. Your choice. I'll just pay the $65,000. I'm not doing this. So some people just, like, oh, I got to pay taxes at some point. Well, you don't if you continue to do it. It's like they, shop till you drop kind of thing. So once you die, all your deferred taxes go away, and your family inherits, and you get a step up in basis. So you don't have to ever do that. There's also other ways to structure it. There's so many complicated ways to do it to where you're not actually doing a 1031 exchange. Like right now, when I'm talking to investors that are either older or don't want to be an active real estate investor, I say, hey, look, you can sell now. I know you don't want to do a 1031 exchange because you're done with real estate. You can sell now, but actually don't close until January. So now you're on the 2026 tax year. Well, 2026 taxes are not due until April of 2027. You can file an extension, so they're not actually due till October of 2027. So you've got like 19 months to do whatever you want with this money you're getting.
Yeah.
And so that's an option to defer. Yes, there is. You are paying taxes at the end of that 18 months, but there's all sorts of things you can do in that. You can buy more property. Let's say you don't want a 1031. I mean, there's just a whole bunch, a whole lot of it. I call it more of advanced strategies depending on, where you're at in your investment journey, I guess.
And I mean, and that's one of the whole points of, you can just continue to do 1031 exchanges until you die, and you're never paying the taxes on it. I mean, that's the whole point of it. Is there a limit? I mean, there's no limits to how many you can do.
There's no limits. A couple things I do want to talk about is, you do have to typically hold an investment property for a year or more. So let's say you bought a duplex today, and you're going to either flip it or maybe even you collect rent for a month, right? And then somebody comes along and wants to buy from you for twice what you paid for it. You really can't do a 1031 exchange. I mean, sometimes a qualified intermediary, which is why I have certain ones I recommend, can help you navigate that. If you sell it off market, it was an offer too good to refuse, and you collected rental income for a period of time, and you have all this documentation, you might be able to get away with it. I've had investors do that for maybe they've had it for 6 months, because you're typically supposed to hold it for a year longer. Collect some kind of rental income or something on it for a year longer. Land's a little bit different because, as an investment piece, not a farm, but just owning a piece of like a lot or something, typically I'd own it a year. Otherwise, it's not considered a 1030, an investment property. It's considered more of a short-term flip. So you're paying short-term capital gains to long-term capital gains on it.
Yep. Okay.
That's a piece that I wanted to talk about regarding the 1031 exchange.
Nice. What else?
For those of us who are real estate professionals,
Yeah.
who talk to us about your favorite investment strategy for real estate professionals.
Yeah, I mean, well, for anybody, but I like the, even on a small scale, right? Like the duplex investment, where everything's separately metered, Class A location, manage it yourself, or fourplex or whatever. And it's great from an income standpoint. 'Cause let's say I'm not a CPA, I don't know anything about all those kind of things, but you can deduct almost all of the income you make off of your investment as a depreciation expense, depending on the purchase price. So that's one of the really nice things is, let's say you make a duplex, somehow you make $30,000 in net income. Well, if the value is a certain amount, you can depreciate all $30,000 of that net income through the phantom depreciation world, because of the value of the property. So that's what, especially as a real estate professional, that's what I really like. If you're not a real estate professional, it's harder because you can't really go negative and have a negative in net income on a, if you're a W-2 worker or something. So it's a lot harder. But that's my best advice, of course, always is, buying a duplex, fourplex, something small that's affordable in a Class A or B market. The stuff that looks great on paper, Class C, C minus, it's usually a lot worse as time goes on. It makes sense if you're going to scale and do some of these things, but if you want to be more passive, like if you're more, I want to work 90% of my time on something else other than real estate, A or B market's the way to go.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more time that we can mingle, but our next investor league, we're going to have Melanie Hall. She has 2 Airbnbs in Olathe. She's going to just talk us through that. So it's Thursday, October 16th. It's actually the 3rd Thursday of the month. We had to move it because Matt has an event that, we had the rooftop fountain mortgage solstice. So again, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate you spending your time with us and talking to us about 1031 exchanges. So